I'm Ritika, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you all to another exciting lending live session with Growth Sutra. As we continue our monthly tradition of bringing you cutting edge insights and thought leadership, today's session couldn't be more timely. We're diving deep into questions that keeping many of us up at night. 2020X vision is now the time to bet on yourself and join the Gen E wave. Before we start our session, I request all the participants to please mention their name and their location in the comment section. Today, I have the privilege of introducing four remarkable leaders who are not just witness to this generational shift but active architects of it. First, let me introduce Dr. Edna Aime Yahil, International Communication and Business Consultant. Next, we have Atul Kulshrestha, founder and managing partner at Growbest. We are also joined by Vivek Chidda, founder of Accelerate X Ventures. And finally, we have Vishindra Verma, founder and CEO of Growth Sutra. Now, let me walk you through our roadmap for today's session. We have structured this conversation into three powerful segments that will take you on a journey from recognition to action. The first segment is why change is no longer optional. The second segment is the blueprint authoring your own path. And the last segment is navigating the uncharted finally. I encourage you all to watch and active participately. Use the comment section to share your thoughts, ask questions. So let's embark on this journey together. Now I would like to invite Vishindra to begin the panel discussion.
Thank you, Ritika. Thank you so much. So, what if what if your next big opportunity was hiding inside a small frustration? Let's begin with a few moments of frustration. In a quiet village in Tamil Nadu, a young engineer who returned from US looked around and asked himself, why is a world-class software for SME companies being built only in Silicon Valley? Why not here? Why not now? So he started coding, no VC funding, no media attention, just quite relentless execution. That company, Zoho, now a global SaaS powerhouse, fully bootstrapped, over $1 billion in revenue, all from a place this startup world wasn't even looking at. Now shift to Delhi, a young consultant tired of stepping out every day just to figure out where to eat. He started scanning restaurant menus and is sharing them online for his colleagues. That a small daily fix and a side project for that young consultant became Zomato, a food tech giant valued at over $13 billion. It's now a public company. Let's move to San Francisco. Two roommates, broke and desperate to pay rent, a design conference is in town, hotels are full, so they rent out air beds in their living room and offer guests breakfast. That scrappy weekend experiment became Airbnb, worth over $100 billion, and it changed how the world travels. So, what do these stories have in common? They didn't start with a perfect pitch, funding, teams, 10-year plans, or even fancy tech. They started with a pain, a frustration, a little insight, a laptop, and the courage to build anyway. So, early success, bold vision, and a relentless drive enable them to establish a $1 billion enterprise. And that is what we are going to discuss today. We look at the environment today in terms of how AI rewriting the rule book, with jobs changing or vanishing, with corporates walls shrinking. More people are experiencing that same frustration. So today we ask, is now the time to start betting on yourself and turn your promising idea to a scalable startup? Welcome to 2020X Vision LinkedIn live session. We'll explore what it really takes to build, and when you have got nothing but courage, clarity, and code. So let's begin with this session. Let me invite all the speakers that we have today. Let's begin with an icebreaker. But I'd invite the speakers to share their introduction, and at the same time, if they can also share what is the number one problem you are solving for people or business. So Edna, we can begin with you. You are on mute.
Thank you. So my name is Edna M. Yachil. I am, at the moment, I'm in New York, but I normally live in Paris. I'm an American, and I work primarily in the area of brand communications and strategic marketing. And the number one problem that I solve for my clients is really how to engage and communicate with various stakeholders.
Thank you, Edna. Atul?
Thank you, Vish. And great meeting you, Edna and Vivek. I think Vivek and I have met a few times, but Edna, first time meeting you. So thanks to Growth Sutra and Vish for organizing this. And again, I'm a, probably third or fourth of my webinars with Growth Sutra. So my background is I have spent, career in corporate, close to 37 years in the industry. Started as a finance person, but went into operations, business, consultant roles, doing account management, and now I'm independent business advisor, strategic advisor, working with small and medium companies, startups. Uh, my focus right now is to really on helping companies in terms of finding the use cases for AI, Gen AI. Technology has been, my passion. I've been always power user of technology, and keep experimenting, keep trying. It's such a fast-pacing world since the time, OpenAI started this revolution. But there is so much which we need to learn, and so much which we need to apply on the business side, right? So my mission right now is to help companies leverage AI, use AI, identify the use cases, and so on and so forth, right? At Grobis Partners, that's one of the services which we offer, in addition to intelligent business transformation and also virtual leadership as a fractional CXO. So back to you, Vish. Thank you.
Thank you, Atul. Thank you so much. Vivek, over to you.
All right. So I've been a serial entrepreneur. At Accelerate Ventures, we help startups scale revenue globally and also help them in their fundraising journey. Um, while this is a simple statement, it's not so simple to do it. We work across sectors, primarily in deep tech and enterprise, and help scale for the world. There are organizations we are helping expand in India, Middle East, and uh, the US markets. The fundamental problem we are solving is that founders, while they focus on building the product and technology, we become the catalyst to help them scale, uh, business and revenues through strategy and go-to-market.
Thank you, Vivek. So, if you look at the panelists that we have, it's a very diverse panel and very experienced as well, working with startups so closely. I'm glad to have all of you today as part of this discussion. So let's move to the first segment, which is why change is no longer optional. And when actually I could remember there's a senior marketing head in India that decided to move on as he saw friction, restructuring, and layoffs at his organization. So instead of reapplying for jobs, he started consulting for AI startups and also for retail tech companies. And 18 months later, 4 countries, a global remote team, and a more freedom than ever before. So the world didn't end; it expanded for him. But let me go to Edna. As there's a lot of there's a dynamism in this market, and some of the recent reports that I have read is where it's been said that nearly 100 million workers globally may need to switch opportunities or may need to switch their occupations by 2030 due to AI. So, Edna, with your global perspective, as you have been working with senior executives, founders, CEOs across various continents in Europe and US and Asia, what is the pattern that you are seeing with the mid-career professionals in different parts of the world?
Okay, so I should probably just clarify that I've worked with some large multinationals in Europe, and also with various startups and scale ups in Asia, the Middle East, the US, and Europe. I think the first thing is, and I'm speaking primarily, let's start with Europe. In Europe, 45 or 50 is the sale by date, okay? And if you're lucky enough, or lucky, in quotes, to be working in a country, say like Germany, that has very strong social protections, then people can stay, enroll until retirement. But the reality for many people is there can be an economic layoff or some other reason, and it is exceptionally hard to get another job after that age. In the US, it's a little bit different. People tend to work longer, but there too, you have sort of similar dynamics in play. So I think that's sort of the first thing to be aware of, that unless you are a civil servant, who is absolutely unfireable, you are putting yourself at risk by staying with the same company for 20, 30 years. Okay.
Right.
And that's something that was maybe different in my parents' generation. It's not now. I think the second thing to clarify is I don't see it anymore as a either or. And I'll give myself as an example. I've been now a solo entrepreneur for about 2 years, but it is my fourth time trying. Now twice I was a failed entrepreneur because I was hired by a corporate to do a job that I was consulting for. But what I see a lot of, I see people going back and forth. Okay, so I see people doing project work, or launching a side business while they're employed, and then letting that grow to a certain size before they take the leap or anything. So I think that there's flexibility, and it's not linear anymore. And I think also, and we can discuss in more detail maybe later in the conversation, there are different paths. I mean, you've been talking so far about starting a scalable company, right? That's one option. But again, I think it was Vivek who mentioned being a fractional CMO, a fractional CEO, etc. That's another option. In Europe, what I'm seeing a lot of is an interim executive who comes in either for a crisis, or very frequently, if a senior member of the team is on a sick leave or pregnancy leave or something for a year, they want to bring in someone who's operational from day one. And then there are people who are sort of like me, and this is not scalable because it depends all on my labor, but I pretty much am selling myself and my knowledge, as opposed to having employees under me. So I think there are lots of different options in terms of what you can do. And there's also a lot of flexibility of leaving corporate, going back to corporate, creating something that's then bought by corporate. I mean, we can explore that in more detail with my esteemed colleagues.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so yeah, you have shared some good insights, and there's a historically, and if you look at in our parents' age, or earlier, the traditional approach was primarily to get a job, and to kind of grow within the job. But now that traditional approach is changing, and this is there are various forces behind the change of that traditional concept. Now there's more counter traditional approaches that are shaping up. So you talked about solopreneur. You also talked about entrepreneur. I mean, people who are building a scalable startups. But yeah, we would see that those trends. We see those trends in India as well. And let me come to Atul. Atul, in terms of landscape in India, where we normally see, there's a report that came in India mentioning that especially the people who are within the 40 to 45 years of age bracket have a high risk zone for corporate exits, creating significant anxiety as well. But are professionals being pushed out of the system or pulled towards entrepreneurship? So, what is that psychological driver that you see in the Indian market currently?
You
or
know,
is it same like what Edna mentioned?
interesting question. Is it a push or a pull?
Mm,
So first of all, I think, in my view, it's more of a pull right now because the ecosystem is so live and dynamic, right? There is so much hype around it, right?
mm,
Everyone, right from the Prime Minister Modi to the government policies, the state government policies, everyone is kind of that startup is the way to go forward, right? So I think
mm,
there is a lot of pull. At the same time, I think what's happening is that there are layoffs also happening, right? We see it
mm,
every day in the news, right? So what is also happening is that, I don't know, there is no published statistics around it, how many people go back into a new job. Some people, because they want to continue with the job, may even take a salary cut or relocate to a different city. I know within my network of people who have worked with me, a lot of people have moved around. Someone went to Chennai, someone went to Hyderabad, and
mm,
so people kind of move around and find another job. And then there are people who actually are considering this, that okay, let me just get into startups, right?
mm,
uh, However, working with startups, what I see is that there is certainly a socio-economic aspect to it, right?
mm,
um, how much, and it depends in terms of which stage of your career you are in, right? If you are in 20s, you have college passed out, you have a higher appetite to take risk, right? When you are 40s or 50, there's a good chance that you are married, you have a wife, and if your wife is working and you have one stable income, then you can go into entrepreneurship, right? So there are all those dynamics which kind of play out. But all said and done, I think there is a big pull in the market. A lot of people are going into it. They are experimenting with ideas. They are
mm.
trying out new things. That's what I have seen. Wish.
Okay, good. So do you see, the entrepreneurship also being considered as a stable job?
Absolutely. I mean, some of you would know that, Edna, for example, in India, now the school curriculum in higher secondary, which is 11th and 12th, now entrepreneurship has been launched as a course,
Mm,
as part of
mm,
the curriculum, right? So right from the school days, once you have gone to that level of maturity, you are 14, 15, 16 years, now there is big push to you know get students to understand about entrepreneurship, the risk taking ability and all. Because by culturally, I think in India we were always, at least till my generation, right?
mm.
Our upbringing was to be risk averse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a big mindset change which has happened, and I think, for good. I think it's good because
When you talk
people are
about the students, I was also part of Delhi government business blaster program, and I actually mentored some couple of students.
correct.
Why they were interested to be part of, there were of course certain students who were very serious in terms of pursuing their idea, but then there are also students who are actually wanting to just become a multimillionaire.
But which can I chip in for just a second? Last year, I was invited to speak in Los Angeles at one of the universities there, in the business school. And afterwards, a student came up to me, and he was a senior, so he was in his last semester. And the guy had started a live streaming sales company. Okay, and this was in last year. I think it was in April. He'd started it in October, and within 6 months he was making 80 to 100,000 in revenue a month.
Wow.
Okay. And he was coming up to me, and first of all he said, Dr. M, I'm getting a C average this semester. I said, it's okay, you're going to be having a turnover of over 2 million this year. That's okay. And then I was really amazed because this was just, it was a guy with a hoodie and really quiet, and he had this wonderful business, and there were sort of basics. He needed to get a bigger warehouse. He had no legal representation, and
Mm,
so it was really sort of wonderful to see So, and this was a first generation college student, his parents weren't wealthy, and it was just amazing. And then, I mean, he was sort of maybe the exception, but then I was meeting people who had, doing last mile delivery. And there was one guy who basically, bought 3 trucks, and he was just delivering, for people. And so people can start all kinds of businesses, and with some of these young folks, they're not even waiting to graduate. They're just they're doing it while they're in school. Even my daughter, God help me, she's still in high school. She sort of sells stuff in Vinted on the weekend. So I have no idea how much she's making. It's her pocket money, but a lot of these guys are doing it even if they have ambitions to go
Yeah,
into a corporate later.
absolutely. So, in fact, for most of these millionaires, sorry, not millionaires, are Gen Z and these youngsters. Startup actually connects with becoming a multimillionaire, or also in terms of funding. So let me now ask Vivek's advice in terms of, because he's also involved as an investor in a couple of startups. Now, Vivek, in terms of when we look at the startup ecosystem, right, especially here in India, startup funding in India has got a dip. I mean, it actually climbed to third place globally in tech startup funding in H1 2025. Uh, and it's showing a clear shift towards leaner AI first business. But are you seeing this change in the definition of fundable startup? And are we moving to a smaller teams as compared to larger teams? What is your take here? And before you answer, let me also mention, there's some comments that have come from Deepak Mehta. So we'll take those comments post Vivek's response.
Sure, Vishwendra. So what has happened is after COVID, there was a lot of investment that happened in the digital transformation. Even the large enterprises made wrong projections, and that led to a lot of firing in Meta and companies like Meta and Google. Right now, what is happening is sort of a correction, and what has accelerated that correction is AI, right? So there is a shift in investor expectations. Earlier scale meant headcount. Funding was done on paper napkin ideas. Today it's about scalability through AI leverage, right? Uh, Solo founders, lean teams can now prototype, market test. You can bind code, get your product out, 10x faster, and launch using AI, for let's say design, customer service, content, data analysis, and so forth.
Yeah.
And especially in the Indian context, platforms like ONDC, UPI, which form the base of the digital infrastructure, make it ideal for lean startups. So India also has a great opportunity uh, when we talk about scale. And right now, today, investors are more focusing on unit economics, GTM velocity, automation capabilities than the team size. And gone are the days when the first question is asked: is the startup revenue generating or not? Right? And then it is treated accordingly. So startups should prototype and make sure you have some traction before you get to market, because the cream is if you can show that there is validation revenue and people are ready to pay for the product that you're building.
I think
Got it.
just want to add, Vish, one point. I think with the spate of some of these, startups which have also created a little bit of a negative sentiment, is also because of the fact that a lot of investors have lost money also, right? And that's why I think there is more scrutiny now on governance and financial, model, and whether the startup can be profitable at some point in time, right? And so I think investors are also looking at it with a little bit of a magnifying glass, at what point in time you will stop burning cash and become profitable, right? Or
Mm.
is your unit economics giving a positive return right from day one, right? So I think that's another dimension which has come in
Mm.
because of some of these startups which had governance. I mean, including not just India. I think across the globe we have seen those examples, right? So
If
Yeah.
I
I think
can,
that's
oh,
around governance. Yeah.
if I can just chip in, that's always been the case in Europe. So in Europe, you always had to have a profit from day one, okay, to get money. On the other hand, people tended to sell once they reached a certain level. So founders were happy to we're making 200 million a year. Okay, we're just going to sell. The U.S. obviously is a very very different model.
Mm.
So I think it really also depends sort of where you are in the world.
Yeah, exactly. I also heard that in Europe it's kind of difficult to start your company, but at the same time, there are certain countries which are pro startup, and they are encouraging the startups to kind
Yeah,
of.
the sexiest one, believe it or not, is Estonia, which many people have not heard of. It's sort of tucked
Yeah.
away in between Russia and Finland. And
Mm.
Estonia started as a digital first economy. They
Mm.
created something called e-residency, which allowed
Mm.
people, including from India or from other countries, not to live in Europe, but actually to establish a EU company, collect VAT and do other things. And that's really where all of the exciting things are happening.
Mm.
Although the bigger countries like Macron, the president of France, is trying now to encourage this sort of entrepreneurship in France, but it's much easier in smaller, more nimble countries.
Thanks, Edna. So yeah, Vivek also mentioned a couple of points, especially in terms of the infrastructure that is shaping up here in India. He talked about ONDC, UPI. That's actually powering a lot of fintech companies and small and mid-sized entrepreneurs here in India. We have few comments, very critical comments that have come from Deepak. And Deepak mentioned, he see a lot of open to work, and there are a couple of comments that he shared. And then, as jobs won't be there, people are pushed to find what works for them. Uh, and his last comment is predictability of future works for knowledge workers is uncertain, which typically a middle class prefers. So his viewpoint is also realistic, and that could happen because of various forces, various market forces. It could be not a good job market, or it could be that there's more layoffs, restructuring, reorganizing, which is taking up in the industry. Do you have any comment to what Deepak shared um, um, as a response in terms of his take on the job market?
Sorry, is that a question for me?
Yes, to all three of you.
So I did not quite get why is he saying it is what is scary.
Yeah.
So I
So
think I
Okay, here
think
it is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was also
So
going to.
as jobs won't be there, people are pushed to find what works for them. I think this is a massive opportunity and not scary. In India specifically, we have been taught to, taught from the beginning that we should be working for others, and a lot of dependence on jobs. But India otherwise has been an entrepreneurial country, right? This will give us the opportunity to become entrepreneurs, to start something on our own, to think how can we create something that we have really wanted to do. So I think instead of being scared, it's a tipping point, it's an inflection where we should start rethinking about, and the Indian startup ecosystem, which is number three in the world right now, is poised for growth, right? And there is so much that is being done in the ecosystem to support this next level of growth that is coming. So instead of being scared, I think we should be thrilled
Yeah.
about the massive opportunity that lies ahead. Obviously, India does not come without its own, challenges, but that's everywhere, right? The opportunities and the strength of numbers that we have in terms of intellectual capital, that we have. And
mm,
in terms of now India becoming also, you know, a place where people coming from outside to work. You will not believe, every week I receive at least three pitches from outside India, from
oh,
US,
okay.
looking for investments. I would not have imagined this, you know, let's say 5 or 10 years ago. So
Mm,
the way the world is looking at India, I think is changing.
Yeah, and I can just add, I think, see, I look at it that AI is going to be, I think people should embrace AI. I think that's the
mm,
way I look at it. I think the more people feel that it's going to take away my job, or it will make me redundant, is obviously, it's the first thing is always fear or flight, right? So
mm,
the thing is that if you really think about it, right, and really embrace AI, you can actually be ahead of the curve, right? You can
mm,
actually get better in terms of doing your job and do more quality work than doing transactional work, right? As per some predictions, people are saying that while some jobs will never go away, right? Where like
mm.
construction or plumbing and those kind of vocational jobs will never. I mean, till the time the robots come in big time, right? But I think it's going to make our lives better, and I just encourage people that embrace AI and see in terms of how you can improve your day-to-day life.
Yeah, yeah. We also received a comment from Priyanka. I feel middle management. So Priyanka is actually a featured attendee today. She's part of our studio. Priyanka, would you like to share your insights here with the?
Hi. Hi. I mean, this is just my thought, honestly. I don't know, for some reason I'm not able to turn my video on. It was on earlier. But am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, sure.
Awesome. So, yeah, so I think, I mean, this is my view. I think because with the younger lot, obviously they are definitely more agile. They can pick up new skills, and so they obviously have to follow the trends and be on top of everything that's going on in the AI world to be able to be more effective. Um, but I think we having a different set of problem with that generation also, because they are less social, and there's like a whole research on that, and little more, I think the procrastination levels have gone up because of the amount of exposure to content. So as long as I think they are in that right space to be able to use their time effectively, which a lot of younger lot is doing, but not majority, I guess. uh,
Mm,
and with the very senior ones, like probably professionals in their 50s or later, I mean, as long as I think agility is very important, I guess, like being open to learning whatever is going on. But I guess overall I feel middle management, like people in their late 30s 40s, is like a safe space, because like that's my view. I may be wrong, but I don't know, what do you think?
I I personally think that the middle management is the unsafest zone,
I agree.
and and that is because they're in the middle. The
Yeah,
Gen Zs know what is trending right now,
yeah,
and the older generation do not care, because it's too late for change, so they've adopted whatever comes. It's okay. I how do I keep pace? I keep pace by talking to Gen Zs every week, because I know that uh, being in the middle management, I am falling behind, and that scares me every day, right?
Right.
And I'm surprised by the kind of things that I learn. And I have mentors that are half my age. They teach me about AI, right? And it's very difficult to keep pace.
yeah.
So,
So
and
keeping
I'm
pace is difficult for everybody because things are changing, like, every month. It's like moving at a
the,
really
the,
fast
challenge,
pace, right?
the challenge is that most people, 90% of people, do not want to keep pace, right?
Yeah.
mm,
You can keep
Which is the
pace
point I was
only.
trying to make. I mean, whichever generation, as long as we are okay to actually spend that extra time to, like, stay on top of it, which for the younger ones will be more natural if they understand it. Uh, and I think people in between are like, I mean, there is agility because we can still pick up new skills, because we've seen like both the generations, the
You are
before
right.
and
So, in fact, for the mid-career professionals, it's not an option. So they have to reskill. They have to upskill themselves.
yeah.
It's not an option for them to not upskill themselves in the considering the coming scenario. And what Vivek shared, in terms of we also work with with youngsters, especially from IITs and IIMs, and the way they have been working and the kind of familiarity they have with Gen AI tools is much better as compared to what we have. So
But you're
obviously
talking
they
about
have
the
a tool which is powering them, and could if they if they are smarter people, then they can replace mid-career professionals. But
Which I would say,
that
I
has
would
been a
just
case
say that
extent
it's not just middle management. I think across the
across
organization,
the exactly,
whether
yeah,
it's a CXO or the senior leader or a middle manager or the junior, everyone is out of their comfort zone, right? Today
absolutely,
we are in that scenario, right?
yeah.
I'll just pause
No,
over
thank
there.
you,
But also,
but thank you, Priyanka. Yeah.
if I can add, I think that the risk for middle management is that as companies become more efficient, they're also flattening, right? So at a
Hmm.
certain point, you don't need them as much. There are different risks for younger folks, because some of the more entry level activities that they would have been doing, previously are no longer needed, right? So, but I don't know, Priyanka, that I would argue that middle management is in the safe zone. But for me, it's all about mentality. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, I know 32-year-olds who behave like little old men and women, and I know 63-year-olds who are like a Gen Z. So at the end of the day, I think it's really about your mentality and your adaptability.
So I mean, I was
Thank
saying it from a standpoint because I have a team which is very, very young. So
Mhm.
they are like mid-20s. So while we're trying to create an AI first team and everybody's using the tools, but then a lot of times in terms of decisions, they can't take decisions now because we've done it, the experience, the domain knowledge, and all of that. Like where they get stuck is when you have to get involved, even though they have all the tools in the world available. So yeah, from the judgment standpoint.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
thank you, Priyanka. Thank you for sharing your insights here. Let me come back to the segment, as there we have two more segments that is going to there. But Priyanka, be there in the studio. We have a couple of questions that have also come, especially in terms of ethical implications for AI during design phase. We'll talk about that. We'll come to the to that segment, the third segment that we are going to talk about. But moving to the second segment, which is, once you have decided, once we um, have once we know what we have to do now, the next step is how we should be doing it. So you are inspired, but where to start? How do you start? So in this segment, we are going to talk about some tactics, tools, and real moves. So Edna, you talked about solopreneurs, global market of consultants. In fact, there's a comment from Deepak as well in this regard. But for consultants, personal branding is critical. It's not just about having skills, but you should be also adapt in terms of communicating that specific problem that you can solve for your customers. So what are those two-step exercise that you would recommend someone can use this week to convert their 15 years of experience into a sharp, globally ready value proposition?
Well, that's a very tough question to answer just in a short period of time. Look, it's about looking outwards and looking at what the market wants. Okay,
Hmm.
so it's not what I've been doing in my corporate job that I'm trying to repeat as a solopreneur. It's really understanding, what's my niche, where do I want to play, what do the customers want, and how can I then present myself. And it may be that you're presenting, I don't know, 5% of what you were doing in your previous job, and that becomes your new job. You also have, and I see Deepak talks about fractional work, you also have the concept of a portfolio career. Okay. And so there are plenty of people who are building portfolio careers where, they're doing maybe fractional work part of the time, maybe they're doing some kind of investment part of the time, maybe they're teaching, or they're doing a fractional work in a hobby that wasn't their original career. And the idea is that you're bringing in multiple revenue streams, which at the end of the day is actually safer than a salary, because in a salary you can always be fired and then there's zero. Whereas if you have a portfolio and multiple revenue streams as a solopreneur, the ideally you're not having more than sort of whatever 20% of your income coming from one stream, and then you sort of just have a bit more of a safety net. But in terms of going back to your question about your brand, it's basic brand building, except the brand is you. Okay. But instead of saying I'm whatever X Meta, I'm X Google, I'm X this, it's more what does the market want, and then I am the person who's going to deliver that for you.
Exactly. Thank you, Edna. Let me move to Vivek. Vivek, when you talked about fractional CMOs or CFOs, now while branding is certainly very critical, as what Edna mentioned, the areas that can be looked at from a brand positioning perspective, and you know but at the same time, today there are more tools at disposal to the fractional CMOs and even CFOs, and that actually add to their capacity. It complement their work. So what are the kind of tools that you see which is without which it would have been impossible for a solo operator just a few years ago?
I think there, if you just have AI with yourself, that is like your trusted teammate, and there are so many tools that are available. In fact, before I get into the names of the tools, there is a repository of AI tools. There's a website called There is an AI for that, right? You
Mm-hmm.
type in the problem statement, the AI will understand the problem statement and give you the exact tools. What worries me or what keeps me up at night is every day in the morning, there is a new update that is coming. So, what I have learned today sometimes is not relevant next week, or there is an update. And I have seen 10 updates on a tool that I have not even touched, right? That people are excited about. So I think the names of the tools will become irrelevant in a week or two, or but what we need to understand is what is the kind of outcomes these tools can give us. To name a few that I've used are Crayon, Copy AI, Jasper. For financial, leaders, there is Flow GPT. In fact, you can choose ChatGPT and Google Docs. You can integrate it in a manner that you can leverage data and present, right? Uh, but I think what also the leaders need to do is to understand how these tools operate, to have the limitations. Blindly using the tools will create problem for you, right? Because the tool for which you're using, anybody can use that tool, but the insight that you bring as a leader of 20 years, you know AI today cannot match that.
Yeah.
For example, I can look at something that is written, and I can, even after well polished and humanized, I can still tell that it is written by an AI, because the human heart knows, if this is real or not. So AI has not reached that level of emotional maturity. So, and as leaders, the benefit is that obviously, if 50 to 70% of the tasks are admin, it can be automated, right? But still, there is a lot of value as a CMO, or as a CFO, as a fractional CXO that you provide to that organization. Your decades of experience should come into play. AI cannot, replace that experience today.
Mm.
It can solve the factual problems, but not the problems that can be solved through experience.
Yeah, thanks, Vivek. So I agree. The tools could complement your skills, but it can't replace those skills. And you have to leverage your skills to position yourself as an expert within that space. So branding is important. Tools can complement your work. You can't be dependent on. You can't be overly dependent on tools. Uh, there's another area which we can't miss out, and that's the ecosystem. So there's a there's a all these roles are actually dependent on what kind of ecosystem that we are operating in. So let me go to Atul and ask that question. So you know what is more effective way to think about building a support system in India? You can't have either a solopreneur or even a scalable startup can't survive without having a support system in India. So how can you think building that support system for your company within India, or even for cross-border activities? And how can audience shift from transactional networking to authentic relationship building that generates real opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, see, first thing is that um, you have to have a good ecosystem around you, right?
Mm,
And like I mentioned before, I think today there is a huge amount of resources which are available, right?
mm,
People like Vivek and me are there. We can mentor, coach. People like Edna, you are doing in the space of marketing, brand building, etc. Right. So I think there is a very good ecosystem which is existing
mm,
in India and across the globe. Number one. Number two, I think when I look at the ecosystem, I think there is another dimension to that. We talked about earlier, push and pull, and how young Jenny kind of people can make into the startup system. One part of the ecosystem is also your family, right?
mm,
You
mm.
have the supportive wife, spouse, husband or wife who's kind of giving you all the space. And because once you get into entrepreneurship, it is 24/7, right?
Mm.
You literally don't have any time to even for yourself many times,
Yeah.
which is both good and bad, right?
Mm,
Because you have to take care of your health. If you have to be, if you are not healthy, then your business cannot be healthy, right? And then I think the point comes about what kind of co-founders you have, right?
mm,
We know that none of the investors actually are willing to put a money on solo entrepreneur because there is too much risk, right? So
mm,
you need to have a good co-founder. You need to really make sure. In fact, a lot of time as an angel investor, I have challenged people that okay, you find a good co-founder, then come back and talk to us, right?
mm,
And
mm.
many times I have helped people connect with potential co-founders. We have interviewed and kind of selected the co-founder, right? So it's extremely important to have a co-founder who can be your cover your back, right? Second thing is that networking, whether it's transactional networking never works, right?
Mm,
You have to have genuineness in your relationship, right? Even if you're talking to Vivek or Edna, anyone, who's Ritika, for example, right? I mean, there has to be some interest in terms of how can I help you? What are you doing today? What is your
mm.
plan for tomorrow? What are you trying to do, right? Because you have to be selfless around it, right? You
Mm,
have to be
mm.
completely selfless. You have to be open, and like it or not, networking is not something which comes naturally to people, right?
Yeah.
We have also been kind of in the last decade become so digital, through Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and all, everything is now electronic, right? But I think people are getting saturated with the digital channels and now going back to physical world, right? There are events happening. There is organizations like TIE. There are
Mm,
organizations like Startup India. There are so many events being organizing, right from press and publication, your story
mm,
doing events, companies like HP and the big organizations doing these startup meets. the whole idea is to bring people together, right?
Yeah, I'll add a point here, Atul. So I also feel that virtually people are able to do that networking as well, and this is what we are also trying to do from our session 2020X Vision. And
Correct.
I prefer that people should be can join our sessions, and not only join our sessions for learning, for educating themselves, but at the same time networking.
Networking, correct.
uh, so yeah, we have been doing it, and that's why I thought, let me add that point. Now we have a question that has come from Deepak again. We have a question from Priyanka. I'll come to that question later on, but from Deepak, there's a question regarding branding. If everyone builds one, retention of you as a brand will be difficult. So how to overcome it? Edna, would
Well,
you like to address
look,
this question?
the issue is you have to become, as has been said by my colleagues here, authentic, but you also need to have your own niche, because otherwise you're just like everybody else, right? And then the bot can replace you, right? If you're producing the same advice, the same, working the same way, you're just like everybody else. You have the same LinkedIn profile, same CV, same pitch. You're not special, and there are different ways to make your brands. You can have multiple brands. Okay, so for example, look, I'm here with Vish. I'm, as these guys on the call know, I'm a big India file, and have been since I was 15 years old. I come frequently to the country. So one side niche I have is that I love to engage in activities with Indians or in India, but 95% of the time I'm doing my thing in Europe or in the US, right? So you can even have your sub brands, but the idea is, what are you feeling passionate about? What is it that you bring that is different than what others bring, and identify it and make sure it's something that the market wants.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Thanks, Edna. I hope, Deepak, you might have got your answer. There's a question from Priyanka as well, which is actually, let's begin the third segment with this question. How do you validate a good business idea before it is launched, right? And the third segment is all about going through the uncertainty which is involved with the business. I think the first step to that uncertainty is to bring some bit of certainty with the help of validating a good business idea. So let me go to Vivek. Vivek, would you like to address this question from Priyanka?
So the answer, I'll give you two answers. One answer is that you go and read the book that I've written, which has got a chapter dedicated to this question, because this is such an important question, um, that even before you start, how do you know whether it's a good idea or not?
Hmm.
And the short answer to that is you don't know. Neither do I, right? Uh, but the way to do it is that you figure out a set of parameters which fall into those criteria, and the first one is founder fit, right? Uh, if I go and if I'm a bio student and I go and say I'm going to do rocket science, then I'm most likely going to fail unless I'm Elon, right? Uh, and so how good or how well do you understand the market, from your experience in the last decade? What is it that you have learned from your experiences that you can apply to today's market? And what is the gap that you see today that can be solved? With a combination of these factors, you come up with a solution, with an idea. Don't get stuck to a particular idea. Founders get fascinated with the first idea. Even I've done that, myself, and they stick to it and get emotionally attached to it, and keep ignoring the data signals that are available in the market. So define a strong problem statement, which if solved becomes a real painkiller. Come up with multiple ways to solve that problem and iterate it. So before you get into full-time venture building, you can build it. Instead of saying it's a startup, you can say I'm doing a project, right? And start to create small solutions and start testing those ideas. The more you test and validate in the market, and iterate, the better your understanding will become, and the market feedback will tell you how valid the solution is, right? And there is no straight line to this. No genius can tell you how well your solution will work unless it's a red ocean market where the market constraints are already set, but then so is your outcome. Then it's not a startup, you're building a lifestyle, uh, you know, business. I hope that answers your question, Priyanka.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So Vivek, of course, when we look at market validation, at the same time, there's certain discipline that needs to be there, especially when you are talking about financial discipline. The maintaining the cash flows. What are your advice to our audience with reference to maintaining the financial discipline while they are testing out their ideas, validating their ideas, or waiting for their startup to get scaled up?
I think if you don't pay enough attention to cash flows, you are going into the valley of death, and there is
Mm,
no recovering. The biggest risk of a startup is that the business continuity is not happening.
mm,
Even if your startup does not function for a couple of months, it's dead, because then people start losing in the team start losing interest.
mm,
So while a lot of founders have big plans, the real plan initially should be that the startup should continue operating, right? Because if it runs out of cash flow for any reason, right,
mm,
then it is going to die. So cash flow is, I think, one of the most important things in a startup. uh, Before you start obsessing about revenue, start obsessing about cash flows, how the business is going to continue to run, making expenditures.
mm,
uh, there are ways to figure out, in terms of time boxing your runway, how much cash do you have, and how many months do you have before the cash runs out,
mm,
and
mm,
start planning in advance, right? And the projections are always wrong. So
mm,
always, if you have 1 year of projections, cut down 30%. You know, so cut down 4 months and say I have 8 months of projections, because the money vanishes faster than you sort of think. And uh, you have to be really, really cautious of the spending, right?
mm,
Unless there is a very, very clear ROI, direct ROI of the money that you're spending, don't spend that rupee, don't spend that dollar, right?
mm.
So you could do, what I call as the milestone based spending. There are some fixed expenditures, there are some variable expenditures. Every expenditure that you're making has to be tied to a metric that is aligned to the north star of what you're trying to achieve, right?
Right, right. Yeah.
I see a lot of founders saying we are doing social media, right? Now I ask them, how many leads did you get generate out of this social media activity? And
Mm,
they start mumbling, because they don't have a clear answer, right? So I tell them that stop doing social media and start doing outbound. If you
mm.
spend $100 on outbound, you can at least know how many leads are generated and how many conversions. The return on your investment can be calculated even if it is zero. But if
Yeah.
you're doing content marketing, your return on your spend is unknown, right? You're not very
Mm,
clear. It's all fuzzy. So don't do
mm.
fuzzy things. And the once you become a big brand, you can afford to do things that have not a clear 100% alignment. That's then, right?
Yeah,
Till then,
that's
you.
it's a great advice. So the people have to be very cost conscious while kind of looking at their financials, and they need to have a discipline, financial discipline, which is important. Let me quickly go to Atul. Atul, there's some question about ethical, and there has to be ethical guardrails as well when we are looking at building your business. Or so, what quick advice would you like to share here?
No, so see, whoever is, especially for AI startups, right?
Mm,
If your startup is built around AI, or it's a deep
mm,
tech, right? I think the first thing, the test which you have to do even before you get to design is, am I convinced about the ethical aspects of this project, right?
mm,
And if
mm,
your heart says no, don't do it, right? So that's my advice. that's the probably the best guardrail which you can have, because if you believe that what I'm going to create is going to have a negative impact on humanity, don't do
Mm,
it.
mm.
So that's a short answer.
Thank you, Atul. And before there's a question from Priyanka as well. Have gone doing wrong with that. Market research is fine, but Xerox and Coca-Cola have gone wrong with that. How can AI help? What is that question, Priyanka? Would you like
Sorry, I
to?
had reframed the last question basically to say that if like the idea sounds good, right?
Okay.
Like it sounds very appealing and potential, but you can't always foresee reception. Like we've done case studies, how Coca-Cola went wrong with Classic Coke after the market research. Xerox went wrong, right? The research said otherwise, but even we know like photocopy is Xerox, it's anonymous. But the initial research said that it'll not work, right? The market
Mm,
research. So we can't. Uh, so I was just trying to expand it, and I was basically trying to ask. Although Vivek has already partially answered that iterating is important,
okay.
and
Great.
there's gut. But tell me if AI can help in any of this, or would you trust a AI research for something like this?
So some of these companies have reached that, tipping point. Like for example, GE, right? You talk about GE, Ford, GM, right? They're all going to go down the hill because they have reached that level of maturity, right? They're getting disrupted by younger organizations, younger companies, right? So it's just an evolution. It's just like human beings. We go from an infant to teenager to young. I think these companies have reached a tipping point where they will eventually die. I mean, that's my view. I mean, no AI can help them. But that's this thing. But I think the good thing is that there are a lot of newcomers which are coming into this space, right? I mean, the rockets which used to be, fired by NASA now are getting replaced by reusable rockets from SpaceX,
Mm.
right? So what's going to happen to those companies which were working on those rockets, right? So I think the whole today the drone technology is such, right, which is getting used in military. But can you reuse those drones, right? Can you reuse those rockets? I think there is a natural evolution around that. So hopefully AI will help in terms of that. Right?
So it's like a good space actually that we're living in because everything is democratic. Knowledge is becoming democratic. So it's about people, their will and their skill and their gut. So experience definitely I think is important. I think as per what Vivek said, also what you are sharing. But yeah, so it's experience and uh, learning. I think the two things, if done well, can work, right?
Yes,
That's like the
absolutely.
light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you, Priyanka, for sharing that. And that's the reason we are having these sessions so that not only we can share our experience, but at the same time it can become a learning for people. They can learn early in terms of what are the pitfalls that we had or what we see in the industry, which they can avoid, and what are the best practices that they can follow. So yeah, thank you so much. I have a because we already passed that hour now. Just a last question to the three speakers. Passion. There are certain entrepreneurs who follow a passion, but passion never pay the bills. So how should you differentiate? Of course, there are some questions that have come in terms of market validation. But do you have any last comment in terms of how you should balance out your passions and building a startup, not only for because you have a passion, but also you have to pay certain bills.
So again, I would give two answers. The answer to this question is in the book again. uh, but the gumption of the idea should come from data, right? The passion is required to sustain it, right? If you believe what you are, the problem you're solving is worth solving,
Mm,
the passion is sustainable. But how far should you go to stick to your journey? It should be driven by data. I'm not
mm,
asking founders to hallucinate that you just keep going even when it feels like there is no light forward. And I think it's a very personal decision. I've seen founders struggle for 10 years before they really rose, uh, and vice versa.
Mm,
But I think it's how you feel about that subject that you are really solving. Some of the
mm,
founders are very early. Pepper Tap launched 10 years ago as a fast grocery delivery, miserably failed, right?
mhm. Yeah,
Uh, but they were very ahead of their time. And in today's time, it is the need of the hour. Everybody wants things at home, fast. So that's what I was saying.
thank.
So my view is that you can fill up your stomach by going to a gurdwara or a temple and still survive, or you have a working spouse who can make sure that the house is running, right? So I
Yeah,
think
and you are
food,
running with your hobbies.
yeah, you run. I think passion is absolutely required for any startup founder, for any entrepreneur, right?
Mm,
uh, so I think that is absolutely must. And if you're not passionate about doing something for which you are doing startup, then probably you shouldn't be doing it, right? So do it only when you have a passion and a deep desire to build something
yeah.
and to cater that segment, or that customer need, right? Fulfill that customer need, number one.
Exactly. I think you need to also have some kind of exit strategy. So if there are certain years that you spend on your startup, on your idea, and if it's not working, maybe you would prefer to fail early, fail safe, and then begin with a new idea.
But it's hard to predict that, Vish, right? It's a very tough decision, and that's where I think sometimes having an external bouncing board, right?
Mm.
Someone like a mentor can be helpful, right? That who
Yeah,
can show you that mirror, that this is the probability for your success, right?
absolutely.
Edna
Edna,
wants to.
your comment.
Look, I think my esteemed colleagues have pretty much covered it. You can't not have a passion, but you also need to do the operational, heavy lifting in order to make things work. So.
Mm, mm. Okay. That was a good conversation, and we had a lot of interactions, good questions that had come from our audience. So I'd like to thank everyone who joined us and who made this session interactive. To our audience who joined on the through LinkedIn comments, and we have a featured attendee today, Priyanka. So thanks, Priyanka, for joining us, and I'd like to thank all the speakers who join and share their insights. We have a next session which is coming up on 21st of August. That's on door openers and landing spots. Um, for 2x conversions and faster wins. So this link for this session is going to be shared here in the LinkedIn comments. Do register for this session, and we are looking forward to see you there. But I hope you have a lot of takeaways from today's discussion, not only in terms of how to shape up your idea, but at the same time what kind of branding, what tools, what support system and guardrails that you need to have so that you can make your idea to be a scalable business. But do share your comments and likes on this session with us. And at the same time, what Atul mentioned, there's some bit of external validation which is needed. So if you are working on certain ideas, or where you need mentorship, do reach out to speakers that we have today. And whether it's a product market fit, or it's a market validation, or GTM strategies for your startup, reach out to them, reach out to us at Growth Sutra, and we will be happy to connect and discuss that further. But thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.